Thank you, Eugenie, and good day, everyone. As nicely introduced by Eugenie, I'm a master student under the supervision of Prof. Linda and Dr. Kim. She already indicated that I'm an instructional designer at the Faculty of Economic and Management Sciences here at UP. So I will be giving a sneak peek into my master's thesis with a focus on the quantitative aspect. And my topic today is student retention in fully online programs. And I look at our beloved postgraduate diploma in public health. So, as a way of background, the South African National Development Plan aimed to increase the student retention, the student enrollment from up to the South African National Development Plan aimed to increase student enrollment to 1.6 million students by 2030. But then a 2014 Council of Higher Education report stated that most South African universities, traditional contact-based, have already reached their capacity to support face-to-face students, full-time students. This is seemingly a challenge for the NDP goal to increase, and therefore to increase access to higher education. The Council of Higher Education proposed that online education should be a solution to this enrollment capacity challenges. And of course, the scalability of online education provides support for such a proposal. And indeed, the development in ICT has influenced and transformed the teaching and learning in higher education. More especially if you look around, the educational technologies are broadly and relatively accessible and cheaper compared to the past. And the same goes with internet access, of course, speaking in relative terms. So what is the problem here? There are perceptions and observed experiences that online environments experience high attrition rate. As an example, UNISA adopted online learning form of distance education more than 10 years ago, but they still struggle with persistently low retention rates. So indeed, there might be problems there. But then student attrition is not a problem unique to South Africa, nor is it an issue that just came up now. It predates the current surge in online education. So the difficulty here is that we've got an NDP plan that is ambitious, was to reach 1.6 million enrollments by 2030, but we've got constraints in our ability to enroll so many students in face-to-face programs. Therefore, online emerged as one of the solutions, but then the observed experiences and the perceptions out there from people who tried it earlier on breed some doubt, specifically with the retention rates and throughputs in such an environment. So the purpose of my study, in part, the purpose of my study was to investigate the student success rates in fully online postgraduate program through examining the student retention rates. I should state that the second leg of my study focused on the contextual influences that help explain the retention rates that we observe. But then here, what I want to ask is that with all the research focus on enhancing teaching and learning with technologies and the various initiatives to support learning, do we still experience low retention rates? And there is the gist of what I'm trying to ask here with the qualitative part. And then again, for the context of the postgraduate diploma in public health, which is a program that I looked at, they have 9 modules there offered in a carousel format. And I looked at 7 student cohorts between January 2020 and June 2021. And there I had data from over 1,000 students. Typical profile of a student in that program obtained by way of getting the averages is mostly Black female, above 35 years, either married or unmarried. They've got children, they're living with spouse or their kids. They're full-time employed. They commute between work and home, and they've got at least 5 years, but mostly 5 and 10 years experience. And they hold a 3 or 4 year bachelor's degree. So this is a typical adult student. Now, so I looked into the student retention rate at a module level to now try and check what are the retention rates in this program. And this compared for each module, the number of students who complete a module relative to those who initially enrolled. And here you can see all our modules above 90%. Actually, if you look at the minimum there, it was 89% and the maximum 97%, the mean 93%, low standard deviation there. That tells you that we looked at module level, we have a very, very high retention rate there. Not a lot of students drop out of the module. But then I want to go on and say cumulatively, what is the trend or pattern over time in the period, in the program? We know that in one module we lose so much, but then if we look relative to the initial cohort size, how many students do we lose over time per cohort? And now looking at the first cohort, and now because the cohort sizes differed, I had to convert that to percentages for easy comparison. Now, looking at the first cohort, we start with 100% in module 1. Only about 85% of them would go to module 2, and then it keeps dropping and dropping. And you can almost see that stabilizing at module 4 to, going forward. The dip here shows that there were students who missed an enrollment period, and then they came back in the next enrollment phase. And now I want to do the same. Check the second cohort. Again, I see a similar pattern here where there's a very big initial drop followed by some form of stabilization there at around 70 to 75%. And the same for cohort 3, cohort 4, 5, and this is how it looks like by the time we go to the 7th cohort. We can already see a pattern emerging here where we have a big drop between 50 to 30%, and then some form of stabilization between 66% and 75% there. And to now get an average, there is a trend line. We can see the big drop for the first module, which is module 1, PHM 710, and then we see some form of stability going forward. That stability at around 66% to 75% there. Now the question was, why do students drop out so much at the beginning? And there I had to put a question to myself, is there a statistical significant difference in the pass rates between the first module and compared to the next one? And thereby asking this question, I'm trying to ascertain, is this because of academic reasons? Is this drop because of any discrepancies in academic performance? And my null hypothesis there, no difference, and alternative, yes, there is. Using Mann-Whitney test, I found that the calculated U value for the pass rates there was 1.5 at 0.05. That was lower than the critical value. Therefore, I had to reject the null hypothesis and accept the fact that there is a difference in the pass rate. But then still, I had more questions. What causes the differences in the pass rate? And then I looked at, is there a difference in grade performance between that module and the other modules? And there's my null hypothesis and the alternative. Here, I had to accept the null hypothesis that there's no significant difference. If you look at it, although there are differences in the pass rate, it can only be explained by the fact that a lot of students drop out before they can even write their, get a final mark. So they're lowering the pass mark, but when you look at the students who remained in the program, they're doing quite well. And in fact, there's no difference between that one module and the rest of the other modules. So yeah, it cannot be academic reasons at that point. Then I went on to check when do these students drop out? When is the critical point? And here I tried to distribute the dates in weeks. When do the students drop out? And I found that the first 2 weeks are the critical point. So just a week before this program starts, some students start deregistering there. The first 2 weeks, they also keep on deregistering there. What I should point is that this 2-week period coincides with the time when academic admin or student admin expects tuition fees. So the fees are due. Either you deregister at this point, or admin will deregister you if you do not have the funds to pay that point. So we can see that a lot of the dropout that we see here was actually accounted by that fact, the deregistration, the 2 weeks period, and these people wouldn't have had an opportunity to, prove themselves academically. So, and we also saw that there's no difference between that one module and the rest. And so I had, sorry. And then just to sneak peek into some of the qualitative findings that I had from the survey, I had this question where I asked them the events or circumstances that may have negatively affected their studies, and finances came up tops. They mostly cited, financial constraints, and the second most reason was the lack of time due to work demands and the difficulty between balancing studies as well as their work and private lives. To a lesser extent, one student stated that the course was just below their expectations, but that student has got a PhD already, and they just wanted to get more, and they found this far too basic for them. And another one deregistered because they got a space to enroll for the same qualification, but higher level at another institution. And to a lesser extent, another student cited that the time demands, it was just too overwhelming for them. It impacted their health, therefore they had to quit. And another one citing administrative issues there. So as we can see, time and finances, those were the main things. So what were the take homes for me? The public health program there has very high student retention rate, at an average of 93%. We lose between 15 and 30% of each student intake. And we know that by the time they get to module 3 and 4, it will stabilize between 66 and 75%. And the deregistration, 80%, actually almost 80% there, 79% to be specific, of students who drop out did so during the first 2-week period. So there we can already see that, 80% dropped out, coinciding with the period when money is due. And yes, the 2-week period become our critical point. And lastly, the reason that they cited on the qualitative part was the finances and time. Recommendations from my side, I think we need more research, a little bit more research, and also practical solutions into the finding needs and the possible payment plans that can be arranged for the students. But I'm also keen to find what longitudinal studies we find on the student retention phenomena. Over time, we compare, we monitor, and continually improve, our student success rate in the program and generally in the online education space. So, ladies and gentlemen, I have come to the end of my presentation, and before I also fall down the stairs, ready to take questions and comments.
Thank you very much, Donald. Let's give a few seconds. If anyone would like to switch on their mics, or if you'd like to post in the comments pane, please do so. Questions or compliments? Yes, Francie.
Sorry, I'm unable to read my my chats now because I'm sharing from the same screen. Would you please read if there's any question for me?
Yes, Siska just said, excellent, Donald. And Francie has raised her hand and switched on her mic. I think she'll be asking you a question.
Thank you. I can take the question.
Thank you very much for the presentation, Donald. Yeah, and for the research, yeah, definitely more research needed on how to improve the student success rate. What I just wanted, the students who fall out so early in the program due to financial reasons, did you find, or is it too early to tell, that they save up and register again, for the next intake? Thank you.
Yes, thank you for that question. I have observed or seen that some students do come back to register, but then a lot of them who force out do not come back. So they are gone. And that can be, just to take you back on the presentation, just a few slides. You can see here that the pattern is trending downwards, and that's because we're losing people over time. Those people do not come back. The few times where people came back, we can see it here. We had a very large drop here, few students going, but then they came back, and we accounted for that. So looking at this, we can safely conclude that once we lose someone, we are less likely to get that person back. But it is possible, of course, for them to come, but it's just not a common thing.
Thank you very much. So I just wondered, are there strategies in place that one could do to try and get these students back, rather than to accept once they're gone, they're gone?
Yeah, a quite difficult question for me to answer. I'm in your corner, little powerless man. But I think maybe, as I indicated on my recommendations, I think more research is needed, and also practical solutions to that. Unfortunately, I'm not in a position to can really say anything authoritative on that subject. But yeah, I'm equally keen to know what solutions would come from that.
Oh, thank you very much, Donald. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Donald. I think we still have time for one more question. Donald, in the chat pane, Catherine just said that as someone who starts her first module of fully online postgrad studies tomorrow, she found it very insightful. Thank you. Dr. Granny Setcher also said thank you, that it's been great. And Kagiso also says thank you, Donald.
Thank you very much.
All right, colleagues.